Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Fatal Attraction Part 6. Today we're talking about the tragic life of Travis Alexander. When we last left off, we had talked about how in April of 2007, Travis Alexander would go to Riverside and spend the weekend with his friends Chris and Sky Hughes. And Jody, who would find out about the weekend excursion, would actually invite herself. And after that weekend, the Hughes would stress to Travis that they were afraid that Jody was becoming way too obsessed and possessive over him. Eventually, Travis would just laugh it off, but after Jody would be caught listening in on their conversation, it would really be the final straw that broke the camel's back for the Hughes. And they were just completely fed up with Jody's possessiveness, obsessions, and basically invading their privacy at any given moment. Travis would go home, and over the next 3 months, other friends of his would also stress to Travis that she was becoming way too obsessed with him, and would often tell him there's just something wrong with that girl Jody. She's not normal. There's just something that's not right. And eventually Travis would end the relationship with Jody in June of 2007, when he would catch her trying to snoop through his phone. Even though the two had broken up, this would not stop Jody and Travis from hanging out together or having sex. And also, it would not stop Jody from regularly stalking on Travis. She would just go as far as moving away from her California home and moving to Mesa, Arizona, where she would get a house within a mile down the road from Travis's house. And whenever Travis would go on business trips or go to conventions for prepaid legal, Jody would use any opportunity she had and frequently break into his home and do the same thing as she had done before: use his shower, sleep in his bed, and then leave right before he would get back home. It wouldn't be long before Travis would have an inkling that Jody was actually breaking into his home when he was not around. And he would often tell his friends that he was starting to get afraid and was afraid that she was invading his privacy. And his worst fears would be realized when he would check a security camera footage. And when he would check the footage from his home security footage, he would see that every time that he had went on these business trips, Jody would be trying to break in through his house by crawling through the doggy door that he had in the back door. And because Jody was constantly invading Travis's privacy more and more and making Travis more and more uncomfortable, this would also create a lot of conflict and altercations between the two. And he would constantly try to remove Jody completely from his life. But he would always be unsuccessful for these things, because every time he would try to completely remove her from his life, she would find different ways to manipulate him. He would later talk to Sky Hughes, his friend, and he would begin telling her that he had been trying to remove her from his life every time, and every single time that he would try to, Jody would just come up with a different story. And one story, she would explain, "You can't kick me out of your life because you're the only person I have in my life. I don't have family, I don't have friends, I don't have anything." And another instance, he would tell Sky that he would try to completely remove her from his life because he was just sick of it, just having every second of his privacy being invaded, where Jody would threaten to kill herself if he had left completely. By January of 2008, Travis would begin dating a friend from church, Lisa Andrews. And even though he would be dating an official with Lisa, he would also be spending time with Jody Arias. And they would often be hanging out and having sex. And as much time as Travis could, he would be taking little vacation spots that he would from the book, 1,000 Places to Visit Before You Die. And he would often take Jody with him, where they would have sex as well. Travis would later tell his friend Sky Hughes that every time he had tried to really get Jody out of his life and try to be a good Mormon, she would either try to manipulate him to change his mind, or she would start dialing up the sex to where he just could not say no. And during these times when he was starting to try to kick her out of his life, she would just often just show up at his door wearing nothing but a trench coat. By December of 2008, Jody would really dial up the stalking by following Travis and Lisa whenever they would go on a date. And whenever they would go out or anything, Jody would just go and stalk them whenever she could. And she would really start dialing up the stalking by not only breaking into Travis's home, but would also break into Lisa's home, and would not only steal both of their journals, but she would also break in Travis's home and steal an engagement ring that he had originally bought for Lisa Andrews. Jody would also send an anonymous email to Lisa Andrews, and in this email she would call her a shameful whore and that she needed to repent so she could be clean in the eyes of God. Lisa would also recall that one time her and Travis would go on a date, and when they would be walking out of the restaurant to go in their car, or Travis's car, they would walk up and realize that all 4 tires of his BMW had been slashed. Even though Travis would accept that this was not normal behavior and there was something definitely wrong with Jody, he still couldn't shake her out of his life. And by February of 2008, Lisa would actually end the relationship when she would find out that Travis and Jody were still having sex. After the breakup with Lisa Andrews, Travis would begin dating another girl from church, a woman by the name of Mimi Hall. And it's around this time that Travis had decided that he was going to get his life straight. And he had noticed that his life was really spiraling out of control, not just with the stalking with Jody, but he was also having financial struggles with his job as he was not being as successful as he had been. And he would eventually go to his church and confess to his bishop about the premarital sex he was having with Jody. After he had confessed everything to his bishop would let him know that this would not be the first time that he had had struggles with premarital sex, and disciplinary action had to be taken, and he would have to confess all of his struggles to the church. And one of the people listening to this confession or testimony would in fact be Mimi's father. Jody herself would run into financial problems as well, mainly because she was not working as much as she had been, because she was focusing all of her time and energy in stalking Travis. And because she was having so many financial difficulties, she would be forced to move back to California and live with her grandparents. But even though she would be living in California, this would not stop Jody from stalking Travis more, and she would begin trying to hack into his Facebook accounts. And eventually Travis would learn about this, and he would finally go off on Jody on Google Chat. During this altercation over email, Travis would ask Jody and demand that she finally admit that she had been stalking and really making his life a living hell. And Jody would completely disregard his question and would not even answer it, and ask him that she wanted him to finally admit that he had feelings for her. Travis would later say that he was tired of constantly forgiving Jody and giving her the benefit of the doubt, and he was completely fed up with all the lies that Jody was giving him. He would even tell Jody in this email that because she had been stalking and making his life a living hell, that he actually considered suicide multiple times, and was pretty much fed up with him forgiving her over and over again just for her to keep doing the same psycho stuff that she had been doing. Jody would once again ask Travis to forgive her and would say that she was trying to do her best and was working at a bar trying to support herself, to where Travis would scoff at her and tell her that if she actually started charging blowjobs at the bar, she would probably make enough money to support herself. In the same email, Travis would say that he wanted nothing to do with her and would call her a three-hole wonder and she was only good for one thing, and would also go and make the statement that Hitler had more of a conscience.